Hey guys, welcome back to One Valuable Note. I'm your host Smart, and today I just want to talk a little bit about the conflicts within a marriage. And sometimes, I've caught myself a variety of times of always getting angry and being angry with my husband because he failed to communicate with me, or he failed to do things that I have been asking him to do, or whatever the situation may be. I have a tendency to bottle it up. And then what happens is that after bottling it up for so long, I explode. And then, it just becomes more of kind of like an accusation kind of situation. And, then I start getting all my feelings into it. Then I want to, tell him what he's been doing wrong, why he's not right, and stuff like that. And you know what? A lot of times it brings unnecessary stress into a relationship. And I'm guilty of that. I'm very guilty of that. No lady can sit there and say they don't do this because at one point you do. And sometimes, I think that us as women, we always go beyond, you know, what we normally do. We always go beyond the limit, as I call it. You guys, we sometimes have the tendency to want to give way more than what we receive, and that's just nature to women, and to a lot of women at least. And I think that with me, I'm very sensitive when it comes to that because I am a giver, and I do like to go, you know I don't have a boundary. I like to go over that, to make people happy, to please people, and even though that is good, sometimes it could be bad as well because you take up so much frustration. You put it on yourself. You know what I mean? And the thing about that is that when you put all that frustration and all that stress on you, all it does is lead you to worrying, stressing out, getting sick, um, feeling unappreciated, angry, depressed. And I mean, these are the symptoms that come after, you know that within your heart as a woman, as a wife, you do everything you can every day for your family. And when your husband fails to do something, or he fails to communicate with you, a lot of the times you feel as if you're not being heard, as if your feelings aren't uh, being accounted for. And that's where we have to learn how to be more communicative. And it's like, wait, I already talked to my husband. I already tell him. I already, let him know. Ladies, you have to understand. Okay. Men, please excuse me. But ladies, you have to understand. Men are not in the same category as we are when it comes to understanding certain feelings. And a lot of times we have to explain to them how it would make us feel on a level that they can understand. You know what I mean? So, I think that a lot of things to men is loyalty because it comes with friendship, it comes with family, it comes with who they're in love with. So I think that if you give them an example about loyalty, it'll kind of probably kind of make them understand a little bit. But I have a tendency of getting very frustrated. And instead of me, over communicating and saying, hey, you know what, this is the problem. You know what I mean? Instead, I want to sugarcoat it and not make my husband feel bad. And instead, I keep it to myself, and bottle it up, and then next thing you know, I'm overly upset. I'm overly tired. I'm overly exhausted. I'm overly unappreciated. I'm overly angry. I'm overly, feeling down about myself and stuff like that. And it's like, my husband looks at me. He's like, I don't understand. You were fine one more moment and now you're feeling like this. Like, I don't understand. And then when you try to explain to them, it's like they don't understand. They're like, wait, but I provide. Wait, but I do this. And wait, but I do that. But they don't understand that it is when a woman does something, we do it out of our hearts. When we do it perfectly detailed and with love. Men see it as it's an assignment. So they do it, and they consider it as a part of a job. So a lot of times they don't put a lot of emphasis in what they do. So I think that that's where the problem may lie on. Okay. It's not so much, even though it is, I think it is, has a lot to do with the men. I also think that it has a lot to do with us women. You know what I mean? Um, we are very sensitive. We're very fragile creatures. And by all that, God created us to be that way. You know, we have the motherly instincts. We have the nature, the caring nature. So, it's not wrong with what we feel, but we need to know how to control it in situations that arise that can cause you anger and frustration. And that is something that I'm dealing with right now because um I have to remind myself, Marla, like, God's watching you. I have a little decoration on one of my doors, actually outside of my office door, and it's a picture of Jesus, and it says, "I saw that," and I put it there for a reason because because the majority of conversations are in that living room, so I have to remind myself, Marla, Jesus is watching, so do not react weird, do not react crazy, and it's hard, guys. It's really, really hard, ladies, because as a woman, as unorganized you may be, there is perfection within us when it comes to certain things with love, with relationships, with communication. And that's where I think that men need to learn is how to communicate more. I did have my husband tell me, well, it's very hard for me to communicate certain situations to you. It's hard for me to communicate when I'm worried about a financial situation. It's hard for me to communicate to you when I do not know how to do a certain uh, home task, and it's like, okay, but and I understand that, but if he communicated that with me, then I might not go off, like a volcano, you know what I mean? But men, I don't know if in all honesty, I think they may see it as a form of weakness if they do communicate this to us. That's why a lot of men have a tendency to just be reserved and stay back. A lot of men don't really talk about a lot of things, just because I think that they think it's whiny, it's overwhelming. I don't want to worry my wife, my family. I don't want, anybody to have pity on me. And I mean, it's understandable, But as I told my husband, I said, you need to learn how to communicate with me and tell me these things because, first of all, I think that men have a hard time understanding what is the equalness in the marriage. And I'm not talking about, him being a man and me being a woman. No, I'm talking about when it comes to things like that, communication, when it comes to budgeting, when it comes to understanding, when it comes to, a level of compassion and forgiveness, like it should always be equal because we're one. You know what I mean? When you marry your partner, you are one. So it's better that you do understand, have that understanding with your partner, and that your partner can understand that all you're trying to do is not boss him around, but all you're trying to do is trying to be able to connect with him on a level that you both can understand. And I think that that's the key. I actually talked to somebody, a very, very beautiful lady that I met, and she's my friend. And shout out to Maureen if she's watching. And I asked her, I said, what is the secret to your marriage? And she said, forgiveness and communication. I sat there and thought about that, and I was like, Okay. I'm having, and this was when I, you know, earlier in the year, but I've been having a problem with that. And yes, I am godly. Yes, I am a follower of Jesus Christ, but I'm also human, guys, okay? And I have my moments. I think it's not like so much the unforgiveness. I think it's the resentment sometimes. I can still hold a little anger and frustration about things. And I was going through that because I was like, okay, you know what? I'm like, my husband just keeps doing this over and over and over. And I just don't even know if I can forgive him anymore. He's using I'm sorry for, as it is, free as the wind. You know what I mean? As if they're giving out free money. I'm like, that doesn't work that way. After so many sorries, to me, it doesn't mean anything anymore. And I'm that type of person that if you're going to apologize to me, let it be, a few times because I know that you'll mean it. And that's just how I am. And when she said that, it automatically took me back to the situations and conversations and arguments that my husband and I had. And I was like, eh, okay, now that might be a problem because, it's like I hold, in my heart sometimes unforgiveness for my husband for the things he does or says, and I'm like, and I shouldn't have that. I was like, and another thing, it comes hand in hand because if I'm holding this anger, if I'm holding resentment in my heart, is because obviously I'm not communicating with him how he's making me feel. So I started doing that lately because I realized and said, you know what? I can't keep holding this to myself. It gets me sick. It gets me stressed out. I can't sleep. And I'm like, I can't do that. So what I started to do was that I started to communicate with my husband and I started telling him and saying, listen, um, you're making me feel this way, with this situation. And when I communicate with you and you continue to do it, you're making me feel like my feelings don't count. Like what I said, you just brushed it off a rug. So now I'm learning how to communicate instead of like really taking it into an anger. If I do have my little moments where I'm angry and I want to fight or something, um, then I just kind of sort of separate myself and he does the same thing so that there will be no um bad uh communication of any kind. So we have told each other that we're going to learn to respect ourselves. We're going to have to learn to respect. I'm going to learn to respect him. He's going to have to learn to respect me in the sense of we are not animals. We are human beings. So whatever needs to be said can be said, but at the moment not let it surpass to a moment of disrespect to anything of that kind, of that nature. So we started doing it and it seems to kind of be working really good, and I'm very excited about that because a lot of times you ladies that are married know that there's a honeymoon stage. At the beginning of the marriages everything's great, and then there's the adaptation stage where it's like, huh, I don't like the way that man ties his shoes. I can't stand the way he chews his food. Ugh, if he only sips one more time of that coffee. You know what I mean? So we start thinking things like that, and then we start letting them add up, add up, add up, and we don't communicate these things with him. All we have to do is, hey, hon, have you tried maybe tying your shoes a whole different other way? Um, Love, can you be careful when you sip your coffee? I'm like, you drip on on your shirt, or you drip it on the table. Um, or can you sort of kind of learn how to chew with your mouth closed? I mean, you don't know where you're going to go or what you may change with just a little bit of communication. You know what I mean? But we tend to blow it up in our minds. And yes, ladies, we blow it up in our minds and it becomes a big deal and it becomes a big fight. And then the guy's looking at us like, I can't believe you're fighting with me over a freaking plate that I left on the table. That's what I'm talking about. So with that being said, ladies, I know it's hard because the majority of the times we have to tell our husbands what to do. But I don't think that God created us out of his rib for just no reason. Okay. I don't think that rib that was just sitting there, just didn't have a purpose. there was a purpose. Okay. First of all, there was an extra one so that we could be created out of it. Number two, I think that God knew and he understood that we were going to need, that the men were going to need teachers like us to show them the way. So I think that that's a part of that. And so do it respectfully, but I think that, you know, what my friend Maureen said was that forgiving communication is key. And it's true because before, I would be upset and be upset for days. Now it's like I sleep through it through the night and next day wake up like, all right, we need to work on this, and we sit down and our conversations are much better, and we sit down and we actually come up with solutions and plans for things, or we, just talk it out what we had argued the night before. He gives his thoughts, I give my thoughts, we crush it, and that's it. We keep moving with the day. And then we continue to realize we are married to good people. It's just that some of us have been through some hard struggles and we learned certain patterns, in other areas of our lives. And then we come here to our marriage and we want to continue acting like ourselves. And you know what? Not to beat down on you ladies, but to be honest with you, a lot of us really need change. Me, myself first. A lot of us need to change. You're not always right. We do need to change, and we do need to give sometimes our husbands the right of way to say things, to talk, to opinionate, and to let them be right sometimes. They're right sometimes. Actually, they're right about 50% of the times. Guys aren't that dumb. Guys are smart. So, I mean, we have to allow to do that. And it's hard for me. I could be prideful. Okay. I would swallow my pride and say, nope, I was right. But you know what? And it's hard for me to always say you were right, because I always feel like I have the answer. But in reality, I need to learn how to humble myself and realize that when my husband's right, he's right. And I need to learn how to let him know that, because it's also communicating something positive. You know what I mean? This is not just talking about, today I just talked about the negative part, but I mean, ladies, you got to start communicating the positive things too. You got to start uplifting your husbands as well. I mean, you want that communication, you got to show it. Don't expect them to come and say, oh, honey, my Juliet, come down from the kitchen drawers and, pour your love out to me. And you can't expect that if you don't give that yourself, And I mean, in the mornings, walk your husband out the door in the mornings or kiss him goodbye and say, have a good day. May the Lord be with you. May the Lord bless you and keep you safe. And, or throughout the day, send them a text and say, I just want you to know, thank you for the hard work that you do. I want you to know that I love you. I want you to know that may God be your strength today. That do not let anything take your joy away. These things help them out. You know what I mean? We demand so much, but sometimes we don't give them those little pearls. And I think that they're satisfied with those little things, and I'm guilty of, well, I've always liked to encourage my man, but um, I am guilty of, just never allowing him to say, you're right. You know what I mean? And that's wrong. That's wrong because, then they don't feel, can you imagine how we feel when they don't want to communicate with us? Then imagine how they feel when we don't want to let them know, what they are to us in our lives. So, with that being said, forgive your husbands, communicate what you feel, communicate with him, let him communicate with you in return, talk about the situation, don't blow it up, don't allow yourself to sit in bitterness and anger, okay, and unforgiveness. Let it go. Put God in the midst of it first. Bring it in prayer. Pray together if you have to. Talk about it. Get it out there. Communicate. It's key. It's love. And then let it be. Keep going on with your happy life. God bless you guys. Thank you so much for watching the show. If you feel like someone needs this podcast and this reflection, please share. Um, bless you guys. Thank you. Oh boy, I couldn't stop it. It still can't stop.